popular definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. The Liberals have been the majority government for over 9 years at this point, and it's in these 9 years that costs for average Canadians such as myself have skyrocketed. Corporate greed is going to exist no matter the political party that's in power, and so it really comes down to questioning which policies are going to enact the best result for the whole population. I will be doing more in-depth research and commenting on the Liberal Party's proposed policies, but for now, I'm going to highlight the policies that I think will have the greatest positive impact if we get Pierre Poilievre as our new Prime Minister. First off is, of course, capping the government spending to combat the rising cost of living in Canada. I've heard many people say that Poilievre wants to do this by taking away social resources, but that's actually not what I found in my research. Welfare is not going to go away, social programs aren't going to go away, it's going to be reducing the number of unnecessary government positions so that our tax dollars are used more efficiently to streamline our services more, which will ultimately mean the ability to lower our taxes in the future and increase the private sector market, giving us a chance to actually build our local economies. Second is going to be the housing affordability that he's discussed. So by reducing the regulatory barriers and expediting construction processes, in addition to regulating immigration rates, we can reduce the housing shortage by increasing the number of homes available to us Canadians, which would result in the price of housing decreasing over time. Next, I think is really important to talk about the immigration policies. Of course, I myself am a first-generation Canadian. Both of my parents are immigrants and moved to Canada. So this is an important topic for me as well. But in 2023, almost 500,000 new permanent residents were welcomed, and this was a population increase of 3.2%, which was the highest annual increase that we have not had in this country since 1957. As I said, child of immigrants, I am pro-immigration, but the thing is, to restore housing affordability by 2030, Canada would need to construct an additional 3.5 million homes in addition to what the existing construction plans already are. Our healthcare system is overburdened. There's over 6.5 million Canadians who are without a regular family doctor or nurse practitioner, and in November, my family actually became part of that statistic when our GP decided to downsize his practice. So my point with this is, how can we help our allies if we can't effectively meet our own basic needs? And the simple answer to me is that we can't. So just to summarize that last point, I think that the immigration rates definitely need to be reduced until we can have enough housing to accommodate the number of people that exist in the country and need homes. So his fourth policy that interested me is the carbon tax repeal. So getting rid of an unnecessary and overburdening tax on our citizens. I did a little bit of research into this. So to offset Canada's annual CO2 emissions of 720 million metric tons, we would need approximately 32.7 billion trees, and that's assuming that each tree would sequester around 0.022 metric tons of CO2 per year. We would need 32.7 billion trees. Canada has 347 billion trees existing in the country, covering about 40% of our total land area. So from how I understand it, we don't need a carbon tax. We need to be investing in increasing our domestic energy production through initiatives like pipelines, which I know is a very hot and sensitive topic I will cover completely in its own in a different video. Canada has one of, if not the strictest and cleanest regulations for natural gas and oil collection. If we permitted the advancement of the harvesting of these resources, not only would we see a shift in decreasing the costs for Canadians, we would also see a higher employment rate in GDP, as well as more power on the international stage, because we could then export to our European allies rather than being forced to sell exclusively to the United States at a steep discount. Why are we importing resources that we already have in this country in abundance? And my last one for this list is Poilievre's take on stricter law enforcement. Trudeau's bail not jail policy has left the public landscape in absolute shambles, and I would be for Poilievre's stricter law enforcement policies. because of the fact that I am statistically more vulnerable to be a victim of a crime. The fact that I want to have a family one day and not have to worry about my children's safety in playgrounds or on the sidewalk, and simply to have basic consequences in place for breaking the law, because currently it is the Wild West. And as a final detail for that point, several studies have suggested that it's between only 5 and 10% of offenders that are committing up to 60% of the total criminal activity. So I'm just going to leave that one there to marinate on. All that being said, though, politics is not black and white the way that social media has kind of conditioned us to look at it as. Liberals or conservatives are neither all good or all bad. Politics is a gray area, and what we really need to accept is that there's no one political party that is going to provide the perfect answer to all of the problems that we're facing as a society. It's our right and our responsibility to exercise our freedom to vote. And I do think, frankly, in this case, that Pierre Poilievre is the best choice for Canada at this point in time and deserves our support.